He did not know it was the last time he would see it whole. He was standing at the edge of a dry hillside, the kind of hillside where nothing grows unless someone carries water to it by hand. The sun had already begun its descent, and the light it left behind was the color of an old wound. Amber, and bruised and tired. He was holding a camera, not a new one. The kind with a cracked casing and a strap worn thin at the buckle. The kind a man holds not because he is proud, but because he cannot let it go. He had carried it for 30 years. He had photographed weddings, funerals, newborn faces, and the hollow eyes of men who had lost everything. He had pointed that lens at the world the way a priest points a candle into darkness. Not to consume it, but to say, I was here. This was real. His name was Walter, and he was 61 years old, and he was standing on that hillside because his village had just been told it had 3 days left. Not 3 days until something better arrived. 3 days until the water would stop flowing. 3 days until the last truck would come and the last family would load their last bundle, and the road out would be sealed with dust and silence. The company, no one ever called it anything but the company, had bought the land the way hunger buys dignity, quietly, completely, and without looking anyone in the eye. And the village, which had existed for longer than any living person could remember, would cease to be a village at all. It would become a number in a file, a coordinate on a map, a before and someone else's after. Walter lifted the camera and took the photograph. It was nothing dramatic. A dirt road, 3 houses with flat roofs, a fig tree no one had planted. It had simply appeared one spring and stayed. A child's sandal lying in the dust near the well. He took the photograph because something in him already understood what his mind had not yet admitted, that this was the last one. That there would be no return trip. That the light on this hillside on this particular afternoon, in this particular exhaustion, would never exist again. He walked home slowly, the way old men walk when they are not going somewhere, but leaving it. Inside the house, his daughter Claire was wrapping dishes in old newspaper. She was 28 but looked older now, with the tight mouth of someone who has stopped expecting comfort. She did not speak when he entered. He did not speak either. They had run out of things to say that weren't accusations, and they were too tired to accuse. His wife Margaret was sitting in the corner near the window, her hands in her lap, her eyes on a wall that would belong to someone else by Friday. She had not cried. This frightened him more than tears would have. His son Daniel had not come. Daniel had left 2 years before, not for opportunity, not for adventure, but for the specific and bitter kind of escape that comes when a son can no longer watch his father lose. He had sent money twice. After that, silence. The silence of someone who has decided that distance is the only mercy he can offer. The neighbors were not kind about it. People who are suffering always need someone suffering worse because it creates the illusion of a floor beneath them. Walter heard what was said at the well in the mornings when the bucket came up slow, that he should have fought harder, that he should have taken the money sooner when it was more, that a man who photographs things instead of fighting for them deserves to lose them. He said nothing, not from weakness, from the kind of exhaustion that has moved past anger into something quieter and colder, like a fire that has burned through everything and now gives off no warmth, only light. On the second night, the young men of the village gathered in the square and spoke loudly about resistance. Their voices carried into Walter's window. He listened. He recognized the voices. Boys he had photographed at their first days of school, at their baptisms, at their fathers' graves. He felt tenderness for them and terror in equal measure. He knew what loudness in the dark costs. He had seen it before, in other villages, in other dry seasons. The company would not negotiate with raised voices. The company negotiated only with patience, so long it became indistinguishable from surrender, or with lawyers, and no one here had lawyers. By morning, the voices were gone, and so were 3 of the young men, who had apparently decided the road out was better taken on their own terms. The square was quiet. The fig tree stood there, indifferent, heavy with fruit no one would pick. Walter developed the photograph himself in a small room he had built for this purpose years ago. 4 walls, a red light, the chemical smell that had become as familiar to him as bread. When the image appeared in the tray, slowly, the way truth appears when you have stopped demanding it, he felt something move through him that he could not name. It was not grief exactly, it was recognition. The photograph showed the village the way it had always been. Small, imperfect, unremarkable to anyone who had not loved it. The sandal near the well, the road going nowhere in particular, the fig tree, the light. He held the photograph for a long time. On the last morning, the truck came. Margaret carried the linens. Claire carried the kitchen things. Walter carried the camera and the photograph, wrapped in cloth, in a bag close to his body. They did not look back, and then they did, and then they did not again. The child who had lost the sandal was standing near the road with her grandmother, watching. The grandmother's face was the face of someone watching water drain from a basin, helpless, attentive, receiving the loss as if it were owed. They went to the city, where a cousin had a spare room. The room was small. The walls were the color of old chalk. There was no window that faced anything except another wall. Walter put the photograph on the shelf, the only shelf, and sat on the edge of the bed and looked at it for a long time. Claire cooked something on a small stove. Margaret slept, or pretended to. Outside, the city made its city sounds. A horn, a vendor calling, the distant bark of an argument that had nothing to do with them. Months passed. Daniel came, eventually. He sat across from his father in the small room and said nothing for a while, and Walter said nothing, and then Daniel said, "I should have stayed." And Walter looked at the photograph on the shelf, the dirt road, the well, the sandal, the light, and said, "Yes." And then, "But you are here now." The photograph did not save anything. The village did not return. The fig tree was cut down when they built the first wall of whatever the company was building. No one came to apologize. No one ever does. Justice, when it arrives late and quietly, like a guest who has lost the address and finally found it only after the dinner is cold and the candles have burned to nothing. Sometimes it does not arrive at all. But the photograph remained, and in it, the light of that last afternoon stayed exactly as it was, amber and bruised and tired, as if the world in that one moment had paused to be witnessed, and being witnessed had not entirely disappeared. This is what Walter understood finally, in the small room with the chalk-colored walls. That the camera was never about memory. It was about mercy. The quiet mercy of saying to a place, to a moment, to an ordinary and forgotten life, "I saw you. You were real. You were enough." He did not weep when he understood this. He simply picked up the camera and waited for the light.